Along the mist-laced shores of the Great Lakes, where the horizon stretches wide and the water hides ancient secrets, stories stir like wind through pine needles. These aren't just old sailors' yarns or campfire tales. They're echoes. They live in crumbling lighthouses, lonely docks, and towns swallowed by time. Today, we'll bring 12 chilling legends back to life, from sunken ships that still call out, to spirits that stalk the bluffs and forests. The Great Lakes region has never truly rested, because here, where water meets shadow, the past never really lets go. And if you listen closely, sometimes it sings. A lighthouse that hums when no one's there. A keeper who never went home. It began in the 1840s along the jagged coast of Lake Huron, in the far northeastern reaches of Michigan. The Presque Isle Lighthouse, built to ward sailors from deadly shoals, became the setting for a tale as eerie as the lake's deepest waters. It was here that a man named George Paris, hired as keeper in the mid-1900s, fell in love with the solitude. After years of tending the light, he died, but they say he never truly left. The beacon, long decommissioned, has been known to flicker back to life. Locals claim it happens on clear nights when no one is in the tower. The light cuts through the fog without electricity. Investigators have confirmed the wiring has been gutted, yet the glow returns. Visitors have felt a warm hand on the stair rail, heard phantom footsteps on the spiral stairs. One woman swore she heard a low, melodic hum, a tune she could never place, echoing down the tower shaft. Others described whispers beneath the wind, a calm but insistent voice saying, "I still serve." Skeptics blame wind currents, faulty sensors, or romantic exaggerations. But the townspeople, those who've lived here for decades, believe George is still lighting the way, bound to his post by loyalty, or perhaps something older, deeper. Presque Isle now holds events, reenactments, and guided night tours, though few dare climb the tower alone. Not because they fear George, but because they know he's watching. He was always watching, and sometimes when the clouds roll low and the lake churns, the tower hums with a tune not heard since the 19th century, a keeper's lullaby for ships long lost. What compels a soul to stay behind, keeping vigil when the job is long done, we don't know. But in Presque Isle the light still burns. 2. The Witch of Beaver Island. She came with the fog, and they say she left with the wind, but her curse remained. Beaver Island, nestled in the northern waters of Lake Michigan, was once ruled by a self-declared king, James Strang, a Mormon dissenter who established a kingdom in the 1850s. But long before Strang's rise and violent fall, the native Anishinaabe people spoke of another power on the island, a woman who could command the weather and speak with spirits through the trees. She was known only as Mishimakwa's bride, bride of the bear spirit. Her story begins with tragedy. A ship crashed near the island in the early 1800s. The only survivor, a woman with raven black hair and piercing eyes, wandered into the woods and was taken in by the native people. But as animals began to vanish, and storms struck without warning, suspicion turned to fear. She spoke an ancient dialect, older than any tribe remembered. She wore bones as jewelry. She whispered to the lake at dusk. A group of settlers later claimed she cursed their boats. Wood rotted overnight, nets came back empty, and one man drowned after claiming she'd touched his arm. They tried to drive her off, but she vanished into the woods laughing. Years later, fishermen began seeing her again, never aged, always barefoot, wandering the shore after dusk, trailing salt water wherever she walked. Her voice carried through the fog, chanting in languages no one could place. Storms still rise suddenly around Beaver Island, and when they do, locals say it's her, the bear's bride, summoning the spirits to protect her land. Skeptics point to weather patterns and lake-effect storms, but some researchers found strange symbols carved deep into the bedrock near Whiskey Point, far older than the island's settlements. The Anishinaabe elders still speak her name and whisper. Today, Beaver Island holds a storm festival every September. Some say it honors nature, others say it appeases her. But when thunder rolls in without warning, and the gulls flee inland, the islanders still bar their doors and avoid the shore, because she never left. She just waits for the right wind, the right tide, the right soul to wander too far. 3. The drowned town beneath Lake Superior. The town was quiet. Too quiet. And then it was gone. Along the southern shore of Lake Superior, just west of Michigan's Keweenaw Peninsula, there once stood a mining town called Belhaven. Founded in the late 1800s during the copper boom, Belhaven thrived until it disappeared beneath the water. What happened is part history, part haunting. The mines had tunneled too deep. In 1912, an underground shaft broke into an unseen aquifer. Water flooded upward like a beast unleashed. Within hours, the lower mines were lost. Within days, the land above began to shift. Belhaven streets cracked. Homes listed sideways. Families fled. Then came the lake. In a single night, Lake Superior surged. A storm struck with no warning. A tempest that locals said moved unnaturally fast. And Belhaven was erased. By morning, only rooftops and the church steeple peaked above the waves. The bodies were never recovered. And neither was the town. But here's where the story twists. Sailors navigating Superior, in the decades since, have reported seeing lights beneath the water, like lanterns swinging in long abandoned homes. Sonar has picked up faint echoes, shaped like streets and structure, and divers who dared descend say they've seen windows intact and glowing, though no power lines run that deep. One diver claimed he saw people down there still sitting at tables, unmoving. Their eyes followed me, he whispered, even though they weren't alive. The government calls it a sinkhole disaster. Geological, unfortunate, explainable. But the locals don't call it that. They call it the Belhaven curse. Every few years a fishing boat goes missing near that spot. No distress call, no wreckage, just gone. And each time the wind carries the faint sound of bells, church bells, tolling from beneath the surface. Now no one anchors near the site. Even the Coast Guard avoids that patch of Superior. They say the dead still live down there, and they're waiting for company. 4. The Weeping Maiden of Whitefish Point. They call her the Widow of the Wind, and she never stops calling. Whitefish Point, jutting into the icy blue of Lake Superior, has long been known as the graveyard of the Great Lakes. Over 200 shipwrecks rest beneath those waters, their rusted end caught in the lake's icy grasp. But among all the tales of broken hulls and lost sailors, one story endures, a ghost not tied to a single ship, but to the very act of waiting. It began in 1860, when a schooner named the Evelyn May was lost in a sudden November gale. Aboard was a young sailor, Daniel Croft, and on shore his bride-to-be Eleanor Bell, just 19, waiting on the beach with a lantern and her wedding dress packed in a chest. The ship never came. Every day for months, Eleanor walked the coast, eyes fixed on the horizon. She never accepted Daniel was gone. Locals said she barely ate, spoke only to the waves and wandered the beach in her white dress, trailing her veil like a mourning shroud. One stormy night, she vanished. Her body was never found. And yet she was never truly gone. For over a century, lighthouse keepers at Whitefish Point reported seeing a figure in white walking the dunes during storms, holding a flickering light. Ships in distress have radioed in sightings of a woman standing on the surface of the water, pointing towards safe passage, just before they were rescued by chance or fate. In 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald went down near the same waters. Some claim the crew saw a figure waving from the lake just before the final transmission. In 1998, a family visiting the shipwreck museum said their daughter spoke to the lady in the fog, who told her to stay off the water tonight. Skeptics say it's just mist and suggestion, but even hardened fishermen leave flowers on the beach near the point, in memory of the Widow of the Wind. Because when Lake Superior stirs and the wind begins to cry, they say Eleanor is walking again, still searching, still waiting, still calling him home.
5. The Wendigo of the Northern Pines. Its hunger is endless, and the cold keeps it alive. In the dense, snow-laden forests near the shores of Lake Superior, especially on the Minnesota and Ontario side, an ancient legend has rooted itself like frostbite in the bones of those who hear it. The Wendigo. The Ojibwe people tell of a spirit once human, twisted by greed or desperation, that transforms into a creature of insatiable hunger. Towering, gaunt, with skin stretched like leather over bone, and eyes that glow with starvation. It stalks the treetops and frozen lakes, moving silently, waiting for weakness. It eats flesh, and it never stops wanting. The earliest settler accounts date back to the 1700s, when French trappers vanished in midwinter, their camps left intact, their rifles unfired. But strange tracks led away, clawed barefoot and far too long for any man. In 1867, a logging camp near Thunder Bay was abandoned overnight. Survivors swore a thing with a frozen face and teeth like icicles tore through the woods, and that it whispered their names before it struck. Even today, search and rescue teams in northern Minnesota train for Wendigo syndrome cases. Individuals found wandering after exposure, speaking in tongues, clawing at their own flesh, begging for warmth even in mild weather. Locals say the Wendigo doesn't kill fat. It waits, weakens you, drives you mad. One 1999 case told of a snowmobiler found days after disappearing near Grand Marais. He was alive but frostbitten and trembling. He whispered to the medic, "It's still out there. It wants me to eat." Skeptics blame hypothermia, isolation, and folklore's psychological power. But the legend endures. The farther north you go, the colder it gets. The more you'll hear the warnings. Never travel alone. Never leave camp at night. And if you hear your own name whispered on the wind, it's already too late. In parts of the North Woods, families still hang protective charms on their doors and leave bits of food outside when winter hits hard. Not to invite the Wendigo, but to distract it, to buy time. Because some spirits don't want your soul. They want your bone.
6. The ghost ship of Lake Ontario. No one remembers her name, but they remember the scream. Lake Ontario's waters are deep and dark, hiding centuries of shipwrecks, lost cargo, and forgotten crew. But one ship returns, not in flesh or steel, but in flame. They call her the Burning Maiden, and she's been seen for over 200 years. The legend begins in the early 1800s, with a merchant schooner that left Oswego bound for Kingston carrying lumber and immigrants. A storm rolled in, fierce and sudden. The ship was last seen by a lighthouse keeper, its sails torn and decks ablaze. Some say lightning struck the mast. Others whisper it was sabotage or worse, a mutiny turned violent. No wreck was ever found. But soon after, strange sightings began. Fishermen at dawn would spot a fully rigged schooner glowing with fire, sailing silently across still waters. Witnesses said the flames never spread, and the ship made no sound, save for a single high-pitched scream that echoed across the lake, then silent. In 1914, a lighthouse keeper in Sackett's Harbor swore he saw it emerge from a thick fog bank, heading straight for shore, but just before crashing, it vanished. Not sank, not burned, simply gone. Even modern radar operators have reported phantom blips moving fast across the lake before blinking out. And in 2003, a Canadian cargo ship nearly diverted course when crew spotted a ship aflame, dead ahead. It vanished mid-call. When the Coast Guard arrived, they found nothing, just smoke in the air, and a single scorched plank floating on the surface. Skeptics blame temperature inversions and optical illusions, the lake playing tricks on tired eyes. But why do the reports always describe the same detail? The figure on the bow, arms outstretched, hair ablaze, screaming silently into the wind. No one knows what her name was. Only that she still sails, and when you see her, they say, pray you never learn what she's running from.
7. The Manitou Screamer of Lake Michigan. It screams once, then the silence comes. North Manitou Island, a quiet, forested dot off the coast of Michigan's Leelanau Peninsula. Seems like a sanctuary. Empty beaches, ancient trees. No cars, no towns, just the rustle of leaves and the sigh of waves. But some say the island is haunted by a creature not of earth, nor heaven, the Manitou Screamer. The story goes back to the 1700s. When the Anishinaabe people lived and traveled these lands, they told of a spirit in the woods, neither animal nor man, that could mimic voices and lure hunters off the trail. Its true sound, however, was unmistakable, a scream so high, so raw, it made birds fall from the sky. The settlers heard it too. In 1849, a logging camp vanished without warning. When rescuers came, they found the site empty, axes still buried in stumps, porridge still warm, but no men, just claw marks on trees, 15 feet off the ground. In the 1970s, park rangers began hearing reports from backpackers, inhuman cries after midnight, trees shaking without wind, and something following them through the woods, too fast, too silent. A few were found wandering, dazed, insisting they had chased a crying child into the forest. But the child wasn't crying anymore. It was laughing. One ranger, now retired, recounted a night patrol when he heard the scream himself. "It wasn't just loud," he said. "It was inside my skull. It knew me." Skeptics say it's bobcats or wind through limestone caverns, but the reports keep coming, and the island remains closed every winter, not just for safety, but to let something rest. Today, visitors are warned to stay on trails, hike in groups, and if you hear your name whispered from the trees, don't look, don't follow, because on Manitou Island, the forest sometimes screams back, and when it does, you won't be the same.
We had the bride beneath the waves of Lake Erie. She wore white, she sank, but she didn't drown. Just off the rocky coast of Ohio's Kelly's Island in Lake Erie lies a patch of water that locals avoid, not because of currents or wreckage, but because of her, the ghost in the Vale. In 1852, a steamboat named the Columbia Belle hosted a lavish wedding en route to Detroit. On board was a young couple, Eleanor and Thomas Whitby, newlyweds from a prominent Cleveland family. Midway through the journey, a freak storm rose. Wind howled, waves crashed, and the vessel, unbalanced from its ornate upper deck, capsized. Nearly everyone was rescued, except Eleanor. Divers later found her wedding dress snagged on a piece of the iron railing at the lake's floor, but her body had vanished. She was never declared dead, only lost. What came next turned the tragedy into legend. Fishermen began seeing a pale woman beneath the surface, just offshore from Kelly's Island, not floating, standing. Her veil billowed unnaturally, and her eyes, they said, followed you. Boats that passed above often suffered strange engine failures. Divers reported being grabbed by unseen hands near the site, their airlines tugged or masks ripped away. One diver in 1991 surfaced trembling, claiming he had followed a shadow into a limestone cavern and seen a face, smiling, with no breath in its lungs. Tour guides dismissed the tale as lake lore, but old-timers still cross themselves when boating past the reef. Some say the Vale occasionally washes ashore during storms, dry and white, before vanishing the next day. Others swear that on the night of July 3rd, her anniversary, you can see her dancing just beneath the surface. Still waiting for the music to return. Eleanor never drowned, they whisper. She's still there, dancing, waiting, watching for a groom who can find her in the dark.
9. The Curse of the Sleeping Bear Dunes. Where wind shapes sand, a mother still waits. On the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, towering dunes rise like golden waves frozen in time. The Sleeping Bear Dunes, a place of beauty, wonder, and deep sorrow. The Ojibwe tell of a great mother bear who fled a wildfire across Wisconsin with her 2 cubs, swimming the vast lake in desperation. The cubs lagged behind. The mother reached the shore, climbed the bluff, and waited, and waited. But the cubs never arrived. The Great Spirit, moved by her sorrow, transformed the mother into the dune that overlooks the lake, and her lost cubs into the 2 Manitou Islands. The legend is ancient, but something else stirs in that sand. Visitors have long spoken of a woman's cry drifting down the dunes at night, not loud but piercing. Not human but not quite animal either. Campers report footsteps on sand where none should be. Others swear they've seen a shadow moving across the top of the dune against the moonlight, though no one is there. In 1927, a hiker vanished on a solo trip up the high bluff. His footprints led halfway down, then disappeared. When they found his pack days later, it was untouched. Only a trail of disturbed sand led toward the water. In 2006, a local artist painting the dunes at dusk snapped photos for reference. Later she found a blurry figure, large, hunched, furred, crouching at the base of the mother dune facing the islands. Some say it's just erosion and folklore. Others believe the spirit of the mother bear still lives, bound by grief so powerful it turned into legend. Park rangers quietly ask visitors not to camp near certain areas, especially on nights when fog rolls in from the water. Because something in the dunes is still watching, still waiting, still mourning what the waves took away.
10. The Phantom Fisherman of Saginaw Bay. He doesn't fish for food, he fishes for the living. Saginaw Bay, where Michigan's mitten stretches eastward into Lake Huron, is known for its shallow waters and sudden squalls. But it's also known for something stranger, the man with no face. The first reports came in the 1880s, after a brutal winter left ice stretching for miles. A lone fisherman, known only as Old Jeb, was last seen heading out on foot, dragging his shanty sled behind him across the frozen bay. A storm hit. He never returned, but a week later, someone saw his shanty drifting, unmanned. Then came the stories. In 1923, 2 ice anglers spotted a distant figure, hunched beside a rusted shanty, motionless for hours. When they approached, it was gone. No prints, no sled tracks, just a cracked hole in the ice and the smell of pipe smoke lingering in the air. In 1974, a Coast Guard report logged a sighting of a man walking on open water during a patrol flight. The ice had already broken up for the season. No man was recovered. And still today, fishermen speak of him. A tall figure in oilskin gear, face hidden behind a ragged scarf, often seen at dusk. He walks across thin ice, silent, and when hailed, he simply vanishes into mist. One man who followed him swore he heard whispering something like, "Not yet, not your turn." Local legend claims that Old Jeb made a deal with the lake to save himself, and now he's cursed to walk its surface forever, searching for someone to take his place. Some believe if you fish too long after sunset, he'll tap on your shoulder and ask for your name. Don't give it. Don't speak. A small festival in Bay City now commemorates the tale, more joke than threat, but every winter without fail, a shanty is found abandoned out on the ice. Inside, a hot cup of coffee, steam still rising, and not a soul in sight. 11. The Gray Lady of Mackinac Island. She drifts through fog like a memory refusing die. Mackinac Island, nestled between Lakes Huron and Michigan, is a place out of time. No cars. No streetlights after dark, just gas lamps, horses, and history layered so thick you can almost taste it in the sea mist. And among its many spirits, one reigns in silence. The Gray Lady. She was first seen in the 1830s at Fort Mackinac, once a strategic military post high above the shoreline. Legend says she was the wife or mistress of a British officer during the War of 1812. She awaited his return from battle every day, pacing the cliffside until one night she fell or jumped into the lake below. They never found her body, but her presence never left. Today, guests at the Grand Hotel report a woman in gray walking the halls, her face blurred, her gown soaked, trailing water. She's been seen near the fort as well, gliding across the parade ground just after sunset, hands outstretched as if searching. Soldiers in reenactment garb have mistaken her for a cast member until she vanished through a wall. In 1969, a groundskeeper quit after claiming the Gray Lady appeared at his side while locking up the ballroom. She looked at him and said, "He's still out there," then dissolved into vapor. Skeptics call it stress, costume confusion, or clever tourism, yet photos taken by visitors often show a shadowy figure near the hotel's West Wing window, always in gray, always alone. No one knows her name, no marker bears her story, and that, perhaps, is why she lingers. She has no grace, no resolution, no voice. So she walks the island still, wrapped in mist, trailing loss like a veil in the breeze, waiting not for rescue, but for remembrance. 12. The Bell Witch of the Sioux Locks. She rings the warning bell, but no one hears it until it's too late. Where Lake Superior spills into Lake Huron through the narrow Sault Ste. Marie Canal, the massive Sioux Locks control the flow of water and ships, but some say another force also guards these waters. A witch drowned long ago whose curse still stirs the machinery at night. The story begins in 1873, when a young woman named Isadora Quinn was accused of witchcraft after a series of freak accidents crippled the lock system. Boilers burst, chains snapped, and in one horrifying event, a crewman was pulled under the gates by a force stronger than current. Isadora, a healer and midwife, had been outspoken against the new industrial encroachments on sacred Anishinaabe land. When a child died in her care, fear turned to fury. Locals dragged her to the edge of the lock and threw her in, believing the water would test her guilt. She never resurfaced, but the bell rang, the lock bell, A massive iron clapper used only in emergencies sounded in the dead of night. No one had pulled the rope. The guards found nothing, but the tradition stuck. Whenever that bell rings unexpectedly, something bad follows. A death, a crash, a vanishing. In 1952, a barge captain claimed he saw a pale woman walking on the surface near the south gate. Arms raised, mouth open, but no sound came out. His ship hit the wall minutes later. In 1998, the emergency bell rang without cause. 2 workers died in a freak elevator collapse the next morning. Maintenance crews still find strange chalk symbols drawn along the lock walls, always washed away by morning. Some say it's graffiti, others call them warnings. Today, Isadora's name is never mentioned in official tours, but among night shift engineers, a rule is passed down quietly. If the bell rings, stop what you're doing, say a prayer, and look to the water, because she's still there, beneath the steel, beneath the gear, watching. And she rings only for the doomed.